That's history breaking through the door. Russian drones crossed into NATO airspace. Poland scrambled back. Meanwhile, the world is pretending this isn't the moment Ukraine has been warning about. Not on the edge of World War III anymore. No, we're in it. While America tearing itself apart over culture wars, Putin is escalating.
This is a huge escalation.
What happens if we never wake up? This week isn't just another news week. It's one of those weeks you'll remember because what just happened in Poland, that's not a headline. That's history breaking through the door. Russian drones crossed into NATO airspace. Poland fired back, scrambled back, let's put it that way. Meanwhile, the world is pretending this isn't the moment Ukraine has been warning the world about. We're not on the edge of World War III anymore. No, we're in it. While America is distracted, tearing itself apart over culture wars, Putin is escalating, hitting civilians, hitting borders, and daring the West to blink first. This is why we're here, to look history in the eye and call it what it is. To stop pretending neutrality is moral, to stop letting propaganda set the narrative for our future. So, welcome, and before we jump in, also, help us get this very first SlavaCast off the ground. Hit the like button, drop a comment in the chat, share the stream, and if you're new here, subscribe as always. YouTube needs to know this conversation matters. And I'm not doing this alone. Johnny's here with me from the channel Young Ukrainians, and we're streaming to his channel as well. So don't forget to subscribe on his channel as well. And we're bringing you into the room, the war room. The news is unsettling.
We have some good news this week.
It's the conversation that shapes how we fight back. So let's get into it. We have breaking news. Poland. On the night of September 9th, Poland's skies lit up. Russian drones crossed the border. NATO jets scrambled. It took Poland and NATO 2 hours to shoot just one drone down. And this wasn't Ukraine's war spilling over, by the way. This was a NATO country getting in. Trump said maybe it was a mistake. If Poland sent 19 drones into Russia, would anyone call that a mistake? Yeah, I don't think so. This wasn't a border incident either. This was an act of war. And pretending otherwise is how we sleepwalk into World War III. In September 1939, Poland was invaded and the world hesitated. It's September 2025, and Russia crossed into NATO airspace. History isn't rhyming, it's literally screaming. So, Johnny, your talking points in this?
I mean, this is a huge escalation. We can see that Russia is getting bolder every day because of what we're doing and how we are reacting. United States and Donald Trump has done everything to make Russia feel as comfortable as possible with all these escalations. But on the other end, Russia is really struggling on the battlefront. Ukraine is beating Russia. Russia can barely hang on to their front lines as they are right now. So this tactic is something that Russia has done before. And the reason for this, it's not for Poland to invoke Article 5 of NATO. It's not for allies to do any kind of escalation. It's to keep Poland busy and afraid, take care of their own defense. Poland is scrambling to see how they can defend against these things. They have less time to think, how can they help Ukraine? That is Russian tactic to ease Western support of Ukraine. While Poland is afraid for its own safety, they don't have time to think about Ukraine. We know that Baltic countries are huge supporters of Ukraine. It was last year they started building fortifications at the border of Latvia and Lithuania and Estonia. That was really scary for those countries. And it worked for Russia's benefit. Estonia, Latvia, they started building their own fortifications because you have to get ready for what Russia is going to do next. It turned out that Russia doesn't have any troops to spare, so all those fortifications that Russia built, they remain empty. So it's like an empty threat, but it still forced a reaction from Baltic states where they had to build their own fortifications, they had to reinforce their own border, and at that time they didn't have time to support Ukraine. They gonna pretend attack NATO. Of course, Russia is always doing something that they can back away from. Russians don't even have to say anything because Western countries are eager to make excuses for Russia. Donald Trump said, oh, it was probably a mistake and the drones were shut down over Ukraine and they fell into Poland, which was completely false. Nobody said that, not even Russians. He was eager to make an excuse for Russia. And that's a trend. He's not the only one. Of course, we know that Donald Trump is friendly with Russia, but people who are not friendly with Russia, they're afraid of Russia. They also may be eager to make excuses. Russia trying to do this to help themselves at the battlefront, but it will have negative consequences for Russia. The West is not dumb. The West does have survival instincts, survival mechanisms, and NATO is mobilizing. In fact, even though there was no Article 5 called, there was Article 4 called. And that's a huge escalation on NATO's part. And big props to Poland for actually standing up and calling for Article 4.
Johnny, you're being, in my opinion, being very optimistic towards Poland and NATO having what it takes to actually do this. I personally don't think they can. They were scrambling to shoot the drones down. I mean, Poland is a huge army, but they don't have combat experience like Ukraine does. They don't have the anti-drone systems that Ukraine does. NATO, including Poland, they need Ukraine more than Ukraine needs them. They're cowards, NATO, and that Ukraine is doing NATO's job, what NATO was essentially created for, which is to protect from Russian invasion.
That's exactly what's going on. NATO is being cowardly. NATO does need Ukraine more than Ukraine. Well, we need each other, of course, but we've been saying it from the start of the war, from the first days. Listen, Ukraine is protecting Europe. Ukraine is doing NATO's job right now, but it's not obvious. This made it obvious. It's a wake-up call for Poland. By the way, you know what happened after this whole incident? Denmark, Poland, I think Romania, Germany, they all approached Ukraine and they said, can you sell us these anti-drone missiles that you've been working on? And that never happened before. Right now, Ukraine is at the forefront of the modern battle.
I mean, of course. And it's been there for, a couple of years now. And again, Ukraine has combat experience. Your army can be huge, but if you just don't have that experience, and frankly, Ukraine is the only one that knows how to fight axis of evil. It won't stop there, actually. Just days after the Polish drone attack, Russia and Belarus have begun Zapad 2025, which is their joint war games at NATO's doorstep. It's not just training, it's lines being drawn. Zapad 2025 isn't a routine drill, it's a message. It's a show of force with nuclear-capable missiles in the mix. There is Iskander missiles, which are actually on the way to Belarus as we speak. So while everyone's shouting about border violations, Russia's quietly rehearsing war with its allies right in Europe's backyard. Poland is closing borders. NATO is sharpening its defenses. The frontier isn't theoretical anymore. This is the chessboard. If these exercises were purely defensive, why choose locations that make every neighbor feel threatened?
That's a show of force. They've done it before the large-scale invasion every year to show NATO allies, back off. Once they attacked Ukraine, Putin said, if you send any kind of help to Ukraine, you're going to be next. Of course, that was a bluff. Everything that Russia is doing is a bluff, but it's also testing our resolve as United States, as Poland, as NATO. Of course, they're just killing Ukrainians, so there's nothing to bluff over there, but everything else, it's up to us to call Russia's bluff. For example,
do you think they're bluffing with Aryashnik? Because they do have Aryashnik as well that they're doing their battlefield drills with.
Definitely. Right now, Russia can barely contain the Ukrainian front. They throw everything at Ukraine and they cannot do anything. They have no capability to attack Europe.
Norks. They still have Norks. They get help from China, from Iran. I mean, their Shahed drones make an insane amount. So yeah, maybe their army is shit, and they are, because a million casualties is insane. But that doesn't mean that Russia will stop shooting Shahed drones or Aryashniks or
The quality of the army is not very high, but they don't have shortage of people. When you look at the numbers that Ukraine has killed, almost like 1,100,000 Russians at this point, you have to think about the volume of people. They're all armed. Each one of them has an AK rifle with them, with bullets. They're all shooting at Ukrainians, some of them successfully killing Ukrainians. To destroy that much over the Russian army, it took a great effort. Ukraine paid in blood for it. And also, not just shooting back at Russians, Ukraine had to innovate. Ukraine had to come up with brilliant strategies to contain everything. So Russia has been stopped. They cannot break Ukrainian front. They cannot do anything else. They're very desperate. My God, this day just got much better. Let's all welcome Commander McMillan.
Russia and Belarus estimates of 13,000 troops that were declared for Zapad 2025, though some analysts suspect additional forces scattered in supporting drills as well. Commander McMillan, is that a lot or is that regular?
It's smaller than Zapad's had been in the past prior to the start of the operation. But as I think I mentioned on the shills when we were talking about this is really more of a gesture on the part of Russia to try to, we're letting you know we're serious kind of thing. Because they have canceled and not held the exercise, because it used to be an annual exercise. They've not held it since the start of the special military operation. So the fact that they're doing anything with that name attached to it right now means that they're going to special lengths to get their point across.
Zapad means the west in Russian.
West? Interesting.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, the direction where they're trying to attack. It's a scare tactic. It's a military exercise is an act of war. It's just not the hot war. It's the colder part of the hot war. That's how it's viewed by foreign.
Both sides conduct exercises on each other's frontier. So it's not war per se. Although both sides always felt that if the other side were going to start off with a war, they would precede it with staging exercises of, oh no, we're not planning to attack. We're just conducting an exercise on the border. And then because they've already had a chance to build up forces at that initial assault wave.
Before Russia did the full-scale invasion on Ukraine, they did have those exercises.
Yeah, exactly.
Until the last second, they were saying, oh, it's just exercises, it's exercises, it's exercises. We're invading. So they will lie to you. Unfortunately for Russia, at this point, it's a bluff. They're completely overwhelmed with everything that's happening in Ukraine. They can barely contain Ukrainian front. They don't have capability to attack Europe, but they are showing that intention to make Europe busy with defending themselves. Maybe at that point, Europe will have less time to show support for Ukraine because they're just afraid for their own safety. That's Russian plan. I hope it's going to backfire somehow.
I think it's less a matter of them trying to force NATO, Europe, to move their own defenses instead of sending stuff to Ukraine, and more there's a show that was on US TV some time ago about the Cuban Missile Crisis. And at one point, the American admirals are arguing with the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of State. And the argument is, the Russians are preparing to attack, and they're going, no. This is the language of diplomacy. They are letting us know that they are upset, and we are letting them know that we are upset by moving forces around. So it's a form of language in the diplomatic world is what they're doing. And when you couple that with the recent intrusion of drones into Poland, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but assuming Slavie's correct that they did the same thing with Romania, yeah, this is the language of diplomacy. They're saying we're very upset, and if you don't back off, we're going to do something. And they're doing that because all their previous threats of, oh yeah, we've got nuclear weapons, pay attention to us, we're real important. And it's gotten to be almost comedic in its effect right now because they've done it so often and nothing's happened. That's kind of what's going on here, is they've realized that threatening nuclear war doesn't work. So now they have to make it really apparent that we're getting serious.
So this is actually a perfect segue into the next segment. While the world, or whoever's paying attention, they're locked in Poland, Russia 9 hours ago flexed hypersonic firepower over the Barnets Sea. Is this another warning shot or a rehearsal? Or much worse? They fired flying Kinzhal missiles over neutral waters. These kind of maneuvers forced NATO to respond. I haven't seen the response. Russia, ruthless right now. The more they lose, the more ruthless they'll get.
They are ruthless, but this is called desperate. Russia is showing its desperation. They are overwhelmed with Ukraine. They cannot break Ukraine. This is part of their tactic to switch things up because they're out of options right now. So this is good and bad. And so it's up to us to make it really good for us and bad for Russia, or they can exploit it to the lengths that they will possibly be able to take it.
Right.
Desperation.
Because Zapad 2025 is becoming less about drills and more about testing boundaries. And when you mix drills and hypersonics, things get dangerous fast. And NATO, the last thing they want to do is go to war with Russia. So their cowardice with that is, I mean, they were telling Poland, don't you dare do Article 5. You've seen how many memes, like NATO is like holding Poland back, don't you dare, or pushing Poland away if they do Article 5.
Let me at him, coach. Let me at him.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we have to deal with. It happen.
At this point, if Russia does something to provoke NATO into reacting, the war is as good as lost for them. They don't have the forces to prosecute the war effectively against just Ukraine. Imagine what happens if NATO intervenes, even if it's just NATO air power. I'm not even saying, let's pretend ground forces are off the table. Air power alone would crush the Russian forces.
Commander McMillan, do you think there's a chance that China can put boots on the ground with Russia?
China's got their own ambitions, and they're working that side of the fence.
They're looking at us.
But I seriously doubt they will. Yeah, I mean, they're having enough squabbles over Taiwan and the Paracels and Spratlys in the South China Sea and all that stuff. They're I won't say they're overcommitted, but they're committed to that area. They're not going to want to send forces to the Ukraine because North Korea is getting something out of it. What that is, I can't tell you. Yeah, the North Korean forces deployed are effectively mercenaries.
Russia is giving North Korea the capability that they otherwise wouldn't have. It's new rockets. After North Korea started aiding Russia on the battlefield, they unveiled that they have a rocket capable of reaching United States. It's a North Korean mission statement that they will not rest until United States is destroyed. We should understand who we're fighting against. And they don't have those rockets. They don't have those scientists. They don't have those capabilities. And Russia provided that in exchange for boots on the ground.
Yeah, that's probably part of what they've done. The issue is that they don't really have that big of an arsenal that they can commit if they were to go to war with South Korea, slant the U.S. I think the number of nuclear weapons that they have weaponized, in other words, attached to a missile or something, is probably less than a dozen.
It's probably correct. Of course, they're so closed up, we don't know much about what's going on over there. But at the same time, North Korean army is one of the biggest in the world, if not the biggest in the world, at least in the manpower department. They have close to 3 million army, which is bigger than United States and China and Russia. Obviously, Ukraine has about 900,000 at this point. North Korea is a huge, big army.
Whenever the soldier, like Norks, they fight for a dictatorship, usually that means they're on a losing side because they don't fight as well as the civil side, I guess.
They are extremely poorly trained to the extent that, for comparison purposes, the average North Korean soldier gets to fire off about 20 rounds with his rifle or whatever per year. The Americans probably are doing that, and the Western Europeans as well, probably doing that much in a month, if not more. Air Force, their pilots maybe get 50 hours of flight time a year under very controlled conditions. Western pilots do that in a month. And as we saw with their performance when they were committed on the Ukrainian front, they're pretty abysmal soldiers.
I think a lot of them just gave up because Ukraine was like, you want some food? You want to watch some porn?
Yeah.
And there's two sides to this as well, because, no matter how many of them and what quality they are, if North Korea sends 10,000 troops with rusty AKs, that's 10,000 troops with rusty AKs. When you have a person running into you, poorly prepared person with a rusty AK, you still have to deploy your tactics. You still have to fire your weapons. You still have to figure out how to neutralize them. They also want to survive.
And we've said that before, which is, everybody makes a joke about, the Russians are pulling T-62s and T-54s out of storage to commit to the front. Yeah, but they still shoot explosive rounds that can kill people. You have to deal with them. The same thing with, the North Korean troops may be abysmal, but you still got to do something to counter them. You can't just ignore them.
Yeah, it's very hard. All of this is taking a lot out of Ukrainian forces. Ukrainian forces have to be on top of their preparation form, utilizing the best of the tactics that they've developed, constantly inventing new things that they have to do, because Russians and North Koreans are learning as well. They're not just going to run to do the same trap day after day. They evolve. They use different things. Ukrainians have to evolve. So unfortunately, as much as it's comforting to say that North Koreans, they're not properly trained, they're not properly armed, it's an inconvenience, to say the least. It's not something that's nothing. It is something. It's not nothing. It is something.
Yeah, exactly.
Right now, of course, they cannot do anything with the front. In fact, in the last month, we tallied it up and Russia gained some ground, Ukraine gained some ground. The overall math, Ukraine earned back 58 square kilometers of its own land. So they're getting their asses handed to them right now. Ukraine is doing beautifully. Ukraine is breaking that Russian front. Of course, it's not victory yet, but at the same time, we can see victory in sight. Ukraine is systematically taking down Russian oil reserves and refineries and natural gas and oil capability. Last week, when we were talking about this, Ukraine has neutralized 21% of Russian oil. At this point today, it's already 25%. So we're moving in the direction of completely, basically destroying Russian money. That's how Russia makes money.
Between their and the oil revenues going down, it's going to get really hard to continue to finance war.
Of course, Putin has come out and said that, this war is cheap and they get enough money from sales of oil and they can continue this war for a very long time. Right now, that message begins to sound less and less convincing because at some point, it's true. You look at what's going on. Russia still sells their oil to India, to China, to whoever will buy it at this point. They're trying to go around sanctions. They have this pipeline, Druzhba. It's going directly into Hungary, directly into, the Slovakia, the two Russian allies in Europe. And so that's been hit. They cannot pump their oil into Europe right now. By the way, this week, Ukraine hit Druzhba pipeline again, but in a different pump area. And that pump is out, and again, they cannot pump their oil into Europe.
It's worth noting that the damage to the oil infrastructure is impacting the domestic economy because gas prices and gas availability, gas not meaning gas, but petroleum, is getting really hard to get hold of in Russia. They're starting to ration it, and particularly in the outlying oblasts, it gets problematic because that's the only way to commute because towns and villages are so far apart.
Exactly. And we've seen those beautiful pictures and videos of these huge lines of cars in Russia trying to buy gasoline, and they're limiting it. They say 10 liters per person. So if you're in a car of 3 people, you can maybe get 30 liters, which, it's like less than 10 gallons, I think. I
thought that it was actually
gallons.
10 per car, not per person.
So do the Russian things.
The video goes on and on. So as car moves, goes on for like 5 minutes.
You're just driving and you can see for miles, just never-ending stream of cars trying to get gasoline.
The boyars don't have to suffer any shortages.
The boyars, yeah. And this breaks the fundamental agreement between Putin and his people. Because At the beginning of the war, he said, regular people will not notice it, will not suffer. And as the war progressed, Ukraine would send little drones here and there, and Russians would laugh it off. They would say, ha ha ha, it's like poking an elephant. Just throwing a little poke at an elephant. But all these little pokes, they've started adding up. Ukrainian attacks are coordinated and very meaningful. Ukraine has to do with very little that they have, and they have to produce an impact. Little drones to the devastating effect. Who could imagine that they will destroy 10% of Russian oil?
Railroads, Russia is really relying on them. And Russia being so huge, that's actually going against their favor right now. Yeah, they're huge, but that takes a lot of time and to move things. Russia is being a big bad bear. Ukraine is being that quick, taking out all their steps. Ukraine is 10 steps ahead.
Usual thing for Russia, their tactic of terrorism and just war crimes all across the map. Russia will never admit that they've hit a hospital or a shopping center. The first time they actually admitted that they hit a hospital was after Vladimir Putin visited Alaska. They hit a hospital, and that's the first time that Russians said, listen, we hit a hospital. And that's a huge escalation in their rhetoric when they can feel so safe and secure to say, listen, we hit a hospital, what are you going to do? And the history shows that it doesn't work. People do not want to give up to somebody who's throwing bombs on their heads. People will actually use whatever resources they have left to fight till their dying breath. And that's what Ukraine is showing right now.
The Russians need to feel the war. And not the actual Russians that live in the rest of Russia, the ones that live in Moscow and St. Petersburg. They're the ones that need to feel the war the most. Because if they get uncomfortable, Putin's done. That's what he's mostly scared of.
It's going to get worse for Russia because OPEC Plus, which is led by Saudi Arabia, just announced that they will increase production by October of this year, which will bring the price oil way down. It's projected to have the 5-year low estimates. This is, of course, devastating news for Russia. I don't know why Saudi Arabia is doing it at this time, but I welcome it with both hands.
Something awesome that Ukraine did, they hit one of Russia's spy ships near Novorossiysk. They smashed its bridge, knocked out its ice, and sent a very clear message. Nothing behind enemy lines is safe anymore. It's Ukraine being Ukraine, turning shit into fish food.
The attack happened on September 10th, reported by intelligence of Ukraine, and the class of ship is called MPSV-07. It was commissioned in 2015. As far as Russia goes, it's a very new technology for them. It costs about $60 million. Russia has a total of 4 such ships. It's a project ship equipped with diving complexes, remotely operated vehicles, a side scan sonar, electronic reconnaissance equipment, and it can be used for seabed service. It's a really high-tech, useful equipment for Russia. Ukraine has started Battle of Crimea. They announced the Flamingo missile, putting that idea out there that one of the first targets might be the Crimea bridge, but they did not hit the Crimea bridge, and that was done on purpose. They hit a security service building in Crimea, where Russians have their brightest and biggest minds over there. So that was a show of force to the Crimeans inside the Crimea. And Ukraine strategically did not take out the bridge. And that's also a good thing, because when you corner your adversary, they have nowhere else to go, they will fight fiercely. But if you leave them a golden bridge to escape, that works in Ukrainians' favor. They did attack a Crimean bridge with small drones. Everybody understands that that's not going to destroy that bridge. But that was, again, part of the psychological tactic. And on the other hand, Ukraine started meticulously and systematically taking out anti-air defenses of Crimea. There's a bunch of different things that they took out. C or S-400. There was a bunch of different things that Russia put in Crimea, and now it's no longer there. And because of the strategic importance and kind of like a propaganda and ideological importance of Crimea, Russia has to keep replenishing those anti-air defenses, which Russia doesn't have enough right now. So that works beautifully for Ukrainians' sake, because Russia has to keep putting more anti-air defenses within Crimea, and Ukraine will keep taking them out. I think it's part of Ukrainian strategy, and it goes back to like the art of the war. You leave your opponent a golden bridge by which they can escape. Because if opponent feels like they're backed into a corner, they will just fight more fiercely. When you give them opportunities and Russians can start thinking, okay, we can still escape by the bridge, that will work to Ukrainians' benefit. Let's go back to 2014, how this war started. This war started from occupation of Crimea. Everything that's happening right now is because of Crimea. This is a payment or a payback or the result of occupation of Crimea. To Ukraine, Crimea is a peninsula. To Russia, Crimea is an island. Because to Ukraine, the Crimea is connected by 2 land bridges, 2 very small strips of land. To Russia, it's not connected in any way, but they did build this bridge. In fact, this bridge is actually larger than those 2 small strips of land that are connecting Crimea to Ukraine. And that was the big point that Russians made at the time. It's impossible to take Crimea by force, especially at that time when Ukraine didn't have a large army. So as long as you're controlling those 2 strips of land and you're controlling the Black Sea, there is nothing Ukraine can do as far as take back Crimea. If Ukraine doesn't do the land mission and just uses the Crimea for a target practice to take out air defense, then Crimea turns into a sitting duck. And all those things that Russians said about what makes Crimea easily to defend against the land invasion are the same things that make Crimea very hard to defend against the tactic that Ukraine is doing right now, which is they're using their drones, their missiles, everything they have to systematically take out the defenses within Crimea, which Russia has to replenish because of the ideological and the strategical importance of Crimea. And that's like becomes a really pressure point that Ukraine can just utilize to the fullest. And that can actually win the war for Ukraine. The strategic genius of Ukraine, everybody was thinking that Ukraine is playing for a short war and Russia is playing for a long war. It's turning the tables completely. Now the time is playing on Ukrainians' favor, and it looks like the longer it takes right now, the worse it is going to be for Russia. And people should never confuse. Ukraine said, oh, we want the war to end. We want the peace today. But there's a difference between wanting the peace as soon as possible and be desperate for that peace. Ukrainians understand that they can turn the tables on Russia and make time work. And that's what we're seeing in Crimea today. In the current world order, Russia is a loser. They will never win and they will never recover. Russia wants to break the current world order. They're not interested in this world to remain where it is anymore. They're done with this world. Their only option is to break the world order, to make sure that United States is not a leader anymore. The United States says America first, never go to Europe, never go to Taiwan. And that's what unites these countries. They're trying to break the current world order. We're all fighting to survive in a state which existed since forever. And Russia is doing everything to destroy this world. But they're not alone. We have to be mindful about the summit that was in China last week and how much it represented more than half of the world, population-wise.
Has World War III begun? What's your answer to that question, Johnny?
Definitely, it's begun. I mean, it's undeniable. No reasonable person will deny. You have to understand that a lot of things that are happening right now, they are acts of war. The whole world is engulfed. You are not out of this war no matter what you do. Your only two choices right now are to support Russia or to support Ukraine. Like for example, India, they're neutral. They're saying we just want peace. They're saying all the right things, but they're buying Russian oil. They're sustaining Russian economy. They're making Russian invasion and genocide of Ukrainians possible. There's no other way to look at it, but their hands are in blood. Whether you understand this or you don't understand this, you are either sustaining Russia, helping Russia continue its genocidal war, or you are helping Ukraine defend the Western values, defend the current world order, which Russia is going to try to destroy, together with China, together with North Korea, with Iran, with India, whoever is going to join. And then smaller countries, they're going to see that we don't have leadership, we don't have resolve. They're going to join the Russian side, the Chinese side. A lot of countries, they don't care one way or the other, So it's very important to show support for Ukraine right now while we can, while we have the momentum, while Ukraine is beating Russia on the battlefront. The war is much greater than that. We're getting attacked in cyberspace. We're getting attacked anywhere where it's possible politically, informationally by Russia. The United States is being attacked. They will kill our people over here in the United States. They will kill our voices like Charlie Kirk, which I'm sure was helped in some way by Russia. I just don't know how. I don't know how to prove it, but it all points in that direction. That's my take.
What a week it has been, that's for sure. And it's only going to get worse, unfortunately, before it starts getting better. And that's why we're here. So we'll be streaming much, much more. We'll be doing breaking news. So make sure you ring the bell so you don't miss our live streams and videos and content coming out. Talk about these things. And hopefully one day end up in a just and peaceful and victorious world. But this is first ever SlavaCast is now on the books. So made it through. And to every single one of you watching, thank you so much. Every like, every share, every comment, every time you show up here, you're telling YouTube that this matters. Supporting Ukraine isn't just charity. Donate to Ukrainian causes, drones, cars. It's the price of a free future. And Ukraine is still paying in blood for all of us. So here's what I want you to think about. We have a little bit of a homework until next time. Here's a question. If this is what the world looks like while we're still half asleep, some of us are looking away, what do you think? What happens if we never wake up? Scary, isn't it? But before you go, you can help. You can hit like, share, subscribe if you haven't, and tell someone why this conversation matters. That's how we make sure the next one is even louder. So be brave, be relentless, be brave like Ukraine. God bless the world. May we come out on the other side prosperous and victorious and lasting peace. And to Ukraine, thank you for being the bravest nation on earth. Slava Ukraine.